Hi everyone, I'm Susan Mulvihill. Welcome back to my garden. I can finally see the ground again because the snow has been melting like crazy. There's still a bit in the shady spots, but I'm so excited because I have a lot of gardening to catch up on. For my April 7th garden column, I wrote about growing blueberries, and you can read it by going to my blog at susansinthegarden.com. In my column, I included all sorts of cultural requirements, and I have to tell you, it is so worth it to add blueberries to your landscape. The berries are fabulous. Now, one thing that I think a lot of folks get confused about is how to prune them. And since the last two videos that I've shot have been about pruning, fruit trees, raspberries, and blackberries, I thought today I'd talk about pruning blueberries. This is our blueberry patch. Nope, it's not out in the vegetable garden. It's actually a part of our backyard. Now, blueberries need a lot of sunshine, at least 6 hours a day. And if you live in an area like I do that has hot, dry summers, it's a great idea that they get some afternoon shade. And so this bed has been ideal because we have shrubs growing on the west end of the bed. So when do you prune blueberries? Well, in the first 2 years of their life, you don't need to prune them. Except if they have some broken branches, I would prune those off. But otherwise, you wait until the spring of the 3rd year and prune them before the leaves start coming out of the branches. The goal is to have a mix of 1, 2, and 3-year-old canes. That's what these branches are called. And I'm going to show you how to tell the difference between them. The two easiest canes to differentiate from one another are the 1-year-olds and the 3-year-olds. So if you look at this little guy here, the 1-year-old cane tends to be smaller in diameter. It has a very smooth bark, and the color tends to be kind of yellow-green with a tinge of red in it. The 3-year-olds, there's this one back here, has a thicker bark that's kind of a gray-brown. It's actually sort of peeling a little bit, and it just kind of has a little bit of a tougher look to it. Now the 2-year-olds tend to have a reddish tinge to them, and they're starting to get some of the thicker bark, but not much just yet. For pruning, you're going to need a hand pruners and a loppers. Mainly you need the loppers for the 3-year-old canes because they are pretty tough. You can use the hand pruners for the 1- and 2-year-old canes though. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at this plant and seeing what I have. I mentioned earlier I like a balance of canes between the 1, 2, and 3-year-old canes. And usually on a plant I like to have about 6 to 8 canes. Sometimes there are plants that aren't doing quite as well, and so they might just have like 3 canes or 4 canes, and that's okay. So as I look at this, I really don't like this branch. It's a 3-year-old, and it's leaning off to the side, and it has another branch that's heading down to the ground, which I could easily just trim off. But since I need to get rid of a little bit of the older growth, I'm going to take that one off. And it's always kind of painful cutting them off there. And I'll do a little cleaner cut when I can get to it better. I also don't particularly care for this branch. So I'm going to go ahead and take that one off. That's a 2-year-old. But again, I want a balance of the 1, 2, and 3-year-old branches. I also have some little canes that are trying to grow in the middle, and that is not a good thing. Since this is a new one, and this branch will probably be coming off next year, I'm going to leave it in place, but I'm going to cut off an inward-facing branch because you don't want them clustering into the middle. You want light to come down into them. Let's see what else could go. There's a dead branch right here that needs to go. Here's a branch growing in a weird direction. That comes out. Here's another one growing into the center. Here's one that's growing back toward the center again. So you just start removing some branches and also looking for ones that are broken. Now this branch is a 3-year-old. Look at where it's going. It's definitely got a problem. So I'm going to go ahead and prune that one off too. It's so painful taking off big branches because you think, how many berries would it have produced for me? Okay, this one I'm not crazy about either. I have to make a decision between the two. Boy, I think I don't like that one because it's heading to the middle. Another thing that I'm looking at in here is the tips of some of these branches have died. That just happens during the course of a winter sometimes. So I'm just going to remove the tips. I hate to remove too much from a branch because in theory they should be producing berries for me. But yeah, I'm definitely going to trim these back a little bit, preferably to an outward facing small branch that's going to grow away from the plant rather than towards it. This one's looking a little iffy as well. So this bush is essentially done. And one of the things that I wanted to clarify is that as you get into an annual pruning routine, the main thing you're going to be doing is just removing a couple of the oldest canes on your bush. But the other things you will be looking for are dead or damaged branches. Remember the ones I just showed you where I had to prune some of the tips off. You're going to be pruning ones that are growing in an oddball direction or that are really growing into the center because I do like to keep them a little bit open in their growth. So pruning is not that difficult. It's just understanding that you need to kind of reinvigorate the growth in here by removing some of the oldest canes each year. Well, one bush down, 22 to go. If you have any questions about pruning blueberries, don't hesitate to drop me an email at susan@susansandthegarden.com. Happy gardening!